Right. Welcome designers to making a face mask from scratch. I hope you are able to see my presentation. If you're unable to see the presentation, please let me know in the comment section in the chat room. So this course is part of the Fast Skill Masterclass, and uh, it's going to take you from design to sewing. So and everything in between, definitely. So once again, this course is part of the Fast Skill Masterclass, and this is class 3. We've already done the class on garment costing. We've done another class on product development, and of course, product development is still ongoing. You have to continue to be in contact with Nina, and she will be able to guide you. And in regards to garment costing, I'm very glad that some people actually started bringing in their feedback, and I have received a couple of assignments, and they're very impressive. So what I will do, some of the great assignments that were completed, I'll be able to share them with the entire class, so that you can benchmark from what your friends were able to accomplish. Those who have not yet finished, please, you can continue bringing them through. You can send it to my email, gintale. I'll be gintale at motiveug.org. I'll be able to share my email with you in this comment section and also in the classroom, so that you're able to share your accomplishments with me. Now, let's start off with this class. So the contents and the outlook of the lecture is going to cover tools and materials, design, patterns, and sewing. Let's look at tools and materials. For this project, you're supposed to prepare a couple of materials in two categories. You need garment making materials, rather tools, and you also need drafting tools. So basically, you need the tools that are going to help you to make the designs. You need the tools that are going to help you to make the patterns. You need the tools that are going to make you that are going to help you to sew the garment together. But if you don't really have some of these main tools like sewing machines and other sewing tools, and you also cannot have access to a couple of hand sewing tools, it's still okay. You, after the lockdown, you will be able to come to Motive and complete your project. But either way, I would love to see what you're able to accomplish. So you'll need to have a sewing machine, and I know some of you at home, you have like a domestic singer. Some of you have like small smaller electrical sewing machines. Others have like manually operated sewing machines. Any kind of sewing machine will be able to do with this project. You need threads, and threads should always be of the same color or close to the color of the main fabric. And you also need to have scissors. Here I put fabric scissors, but you need to have both fabric scissors and paper cutting scissors, because you're going to be doing pattern making, and you're also going to be doing the fabric cutting. So you need pins. Most of you don't like using pins, and it's really terrible. Pins are very good when you want to align fabrics together, so that you make sure that while you're stitching, you get a proper stitching line. You need to have a tape measure. You need to have drafting tools like rulers, pencils, pens. Will be able to help you to draft. And of course, you need to have pattern paper. Now, I understand you're home. Most of you don't know where to access patterned paper. It's still fine. You can still use, since this is a small piece of garment, you can still use a normal paper, like a simple paper, a simple A4 paper should be able to do for you to develop your patterns. And you need fabric. If you cannot access fabric, you have some old fabrics at home, you can still upcycle it and translate it into something that is very useful, Yes. Now, talking about the design, we are going to be looking at two designs. Today, specifically, we'll be covering the first design, which is a fitted mask with full coverage. Now, there are all sorts of mask designs. You've seen flat mask designs. You've seen, for instance, this design here, a fitted mask with full coverage. It's one that covers right from the nose all the way underneath the chin. That is, some people call it a 3D mask. A 3D mask can be a little bit different because it can have like about three pieces of material. But this one specifically is a fitted full coverage mask because it covers right from the nose all the way underneath the chin. Then you have this other design, which we'll cover possibly on Thursday or on Saturday. I'll be communicating in the communication channels. And this mask here is a contoured mask. Contoured mask is covering right from the nose piece, but it doesn't cover all the way to underneath the chin. It's simply kind of like uh, it's simply kind of like it's not flat. It has the curves around the nose area right here, but right underneath the chin, it doesn't go all the way there. So that's what we call a contoured mask. Contoured masks are very common. Contoured masks are very common nowadays because they save you on material, and of course, depending on also the budget of your client. And if they don't want something that is going to waste a lot of material, probably they're making maybe 1,000 masks and they just want something a bit cheaper, it still can do. But considering the state of COVID-19 and among other factors like other viral infections, uh, a fitted mask with full coverage is much more safer because it's embodying the entire face, and it prevents it prevents uh, it prevents penetration of viruses to the wearer. So that's basically the design. But you can still sketch it down. It's okay just to make modifications, but it's not going to be any different because it's just a simple mask that really runs from the nose all the way to the chin. And the design looks just like that. There isn't another way I can really vividly show you the design that you're going to make, but it looks just like this. You can sketch it. You can do much more research online on how to sort of like add simple modifications on a fitted mask with full coverage. You'll certainly still be able to come up with something quite close. Patterns. Now, the next thing that you're going to do is to make the patterns. To make this pattern, you need to have your brown paper or your pattern paper. Like I said, if you don't have access to a pattern paper, you can still use your A4, maybe white paper. This is a small garment. It will still be able to fit on there. Or if you have some newsprint, you can still try to work it out. Why is it always important for us to use a pattern paper? It's because pattern papers help you to plan around accordingly and to also prevent wastage of your material because you would know exactly how much material you need. Now, in this case, the outlines you see in white are the outlines you're going to be drawing with your pen and with your ruler and with basically your drafting tool. So this rectangular area here is the pattern perimeter. It's the pattern perimeter. That's the pattern perimeter. So what is happening here is that this side here is meant to be on fold, but since you're working on paper, this is something you'll just indicate. You just have to write there fold on this one edge. So the lengths are, you will need to have a pattern paper and make a square. This square is going to be 6 inches in height and 6 inches in width. Once you have demarcated the length and width of the square you will need, then you're going to start marking out portions. For instance, from this corner here, right to this corner here, it's 5 inches. From this corner up to there, it's 1 inch. Then from this point here up to that point, it's 2 inches. And from that point up to here, it's 4 inches. And from this point...
Excuse me, Mr. Antale.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The presentation screen is off.
Oh, are you sure the presentation screen is off?
It's gone into a very small box that it's very difficult to see.
Are you using a phone or you're using
No, I'm using a computer.
a computer? Really? Let me try to pull.
Yes.
Let me try to pull it back. Resume presenting.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Everything is fine, right?
Yes.
Welcome. Okay, I was saying, when you're working with your pattern paper, you need to demarcate a perimeter, and this perimeter is 6 inches by 6 inches. So from this point up to this point, it's 6 inches, and also from this point up to that point, it's 6 inches. So you are going to be demarcating measurements. So from here up to here, it's 5 inches. From here up to there, it's 1 inch. Then you have from that point up to that point is 2 inches. Then up to this point is 4 inches. Then 3.5 inches. Then 2.5 inches. And up to here is 2.5 inches. Then up to this point is 3.25 inches. Then you have a quarter inch right there. Now, all these points would be dots. You're simply marking dots at that point, at that point, at that point, and at that point. Then after that, you start connecting your points. And here you can use a ruler. You can try to use a French curve if you have it to make the curves, or you can try to perfect your freehand and try to demarcate, try to outline and connect these points very well. Oops, someone's okay, great. All right, so once you have finished to make your pattern and you've demarcated it very well, the next step would be to cut it out. So you would cut out the perimeters in white very well. Kindly mute your calls. Somebody's call is not muted. Guys, somebody's call, please. Thank you. So you would now be cutting out your patterns. You'd be cutting out your pattern, but you'll be cutting out your pattern, and you cut along the outlines as you see in the in that illustration. So then you would have your completed pattern looking like that. Now, most of you usually have trouble cutting because you're using the wrong tools. I strongly advise you to use a pattern cutting scissor. Most of you end up using a fabric scissor. Fabric scissors are not meant to cut paper. You have to always use a paper scissor, and paper scissors are usually cheaper than fabric scissors anyway. So the next step we're going to do is to transfer our pattern to fabric. And once we transfer it to fabric, we're going to need 2 fabrics. We shall need the lining, which is going to be in the inside of the mask, and we will need the outer fabric, which will be on the outside of the mask. So we have to cut out this pattern from both fabrics. So we transfer the pattern on the fabric. Now, in this case, this is the outer fabric. the leaf print is our outer fabric, but you can use any. You can use all different sorts of materials, but the best materials here is supposed to be at least cotton, which is having well closely uh, having a very tight weave, so that it doesn't allow penetration of viruses and all those other foreign materials. So that's why it's very much advisable that you use a good material. So in this case, you transfer the pattern onto the fabric and you cut out this fabric to the shape you need. Now, remember, this fabric is supposed to be folded on the side. So this part here is on fold. This part of the fabric here is on fold. And this part here, from this point up to this point, is not meant to be cut because it's on fold. So you do this for both the outer fabric and for the inside fabric, such that you will have these two pieces like this. You'll have your outer fabric cut out like that, and you'll have your lining piece also cut out like that. So, having cut out your fabric pieces, most of you, I know you struggle a lot with cutting, but you have to make sure that while you're cutting, you include the necessary allowances for stitching. And in this case, the necessary allowances, and this is also good, actually demarcate these allowances on the actual pattern paper. But some people end up, for instance, for the case of the mask, some people end up adding a big allowance, then the mask ends up being so big and hovering over the entire face. So you have to add their tiny allowances like a 1/4 inch, which are sufficient for you to stitch and still maintain the right size of the mask. So now you have to go on to the stitching. Someone's mic is not muted. You have to go on to the stitching. The first thing to always do is to stitch the area. If I'm to go back a little bit, we're going to be stitching this area. You see this V area which is open. So we fold our fabric such that we see the wrong side. In Luganda, the wrong side is bikukuju. We fold it so that we are able to see the wrong side. We fold this end to that end so that we are able to see the wrong side. And we are going to stitch and close this part here, this curved part here. We do this for both the outer fabric and the lining independently, such that we will be stitching this, such that we will be stitching that curve to close it up for both. Now, when you're stitching, remember you're leaving this allowance, which is about a 1/4 inch. So you stitch it and close it up like that. Now, the next thing, now you have closed up both the lining, you've closed up both the lining, the nose part of both the lining and the outer fabric. What I mean is you've closed up both of the nose pieces. You've closed up this area for the outer fabric and you've closed up this area for the lining. So the next thing would be to now join the outer fabric to the lining. So you bring this outer fabric closer onto the lining piece. Now, while you do this, you have to make sure that the right sides, the part that is going to be on the outside and the part that is going to be on the inside. So you make sure that the right sides of both the outer fabric and the right side of the lining are facing each other. And on the outside here, you are able to see the inside part of that outer fabric. So you bring them together, and now we are going to stitch along the perimeter. We are going to be able to stitch along the perimeter. So to do this, we'll just run it in the sewing machine. We stitch around the perimeter. We will stitch around the perimeter along the length. And after stitching there, we will turn it back inside out. You turn your mask inside out, and then you top stitch your mask. You're supposed to top stitch your mask all around, such that you have firm edges. Then once you're finished stitching on the top stitching the sides of your mask, then you will get the edge. Now these are the sides of the mask. Remember, you've top stitched. The top stitch will be able to be you will be visible both on the outside of the mask, just like you see here, and on the inside of that mask. Then you're going to get this end, the side of the mask, and you fold it towards the inside. You fold both of the sides of the mask towards the inside of the mask like this, and we are going to stitch. We're going to stitch in place to lock. We're going to lock this curvature in place, if I can put it like that. So we'll stitch right here from this point all the way up to this point. We will stitch along this line such that we secure this in place. Now we do this while our elastic, this is elastic here. Someone's mic is not, guys, please. I don't have control over the your mics, but someone's mic is meant to be, yeah. So like I was saying, you fold the edges towards the inside and you stitch along in place, and then you make sure that you do this while the elastic is attached as you see it there. But this elastic is meant to be able to move. It's not fixed. You don't stitch on top of the elastic. It's meant to be fixed. The elastic is meant to be fixed. It doesn't move. It's very simple. It's a very simple tutorial. Trust me. It's a very quick and simple tutorial. Then the next thing is to bring the sides. You're going to bring both sides, this side here and this side here of the elastic. You bring them together and you use your hand needle to stitch them in place. You stitch them in place. After stitching them in place, you will pull this elastic such that this end where you've stitched with the hand needle is hidden inside here. And then you will have completed your mask. Now, this tutorial is meant to help you to be able to also discover better ways for you to stitch this mask together. So everything is not given on a silver plate, so that you are able to discover more techniques on how to do it. So it's not just a copy and paste. You may discover a lot more techniques on how to stitch this mask. Yeah, and once you have stitched this part of the elastic here, and you pull it through so that it's hidden in the inside of this curve, then your mask will definitely be complete and it will be done. Now, I am not meant to give you everything, because I want to see what you're able to achieve, and this will help me to evaluate how best you, because learning is not just copy and paste, it's also a journey of discovery, so that you can discover better ways for you to make this item. So your mask will certainly be complete. Your mask will certainly be complete, and you will be able to accomplish that mask and finish it properly. Now, it seems like I don't have uh, 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 a lot to extrapolate after this, but clearly, as you can see, I'll be very much interested to see what you come up with. And if there's anything you need to ask upon, you can clearly ask me. And then we can see how we can go about it.
Hello, Mr. Antale.
Yes, please.
I'm requesting if you could view the slide with the measurements once more.
The slides having the measurements. Yes. Just to explain one more thing.
The first slide.
Okay. Just to explain
Yes,
one.
please.
Yes. Just to explain one more thing is. Just to explain one more thing. All these materials are available in your classrooms. So when you log into the Google platform, you will be able to access. When you log into your Google platforms, you will be able to access these tutorials, and all the materials have been attached there. So just going back a little bit to just going back a little bit, as you have mentioned on the other slide. I think we are right here. The measurements are right here, and you are able to use that. The measurements are right here, and you are able to clearly see them, I believe. And basically, these measurements, it's simply demarcating the square, which is 6 inches by 6 inches, and then demarcating, sort of like marking off the various measurements, like all these points, like the 5 inches, the 1 inch, the 2 inches, the 4 inches, 3.5, all around the entire perimeter, and you're able to connect those dots with a ruler, and also this with a freehand, or you can use a French curve. If you're using a freehand, you have to make sure that you perfect it very well. But otherwise, this is how the pattern should look like. Should be able to cut it out along those edges, and it will be able to come out like that. You see. Do you have any? Yes, please.
I also have a question. How do you get those measurements?
Now, these measurements are pre-made for you. These measurements are pre-made for you so that you are able to draft this mask. But this is a standard mask, a standard size mask for an adult. And in the future, on I think Thursday, I'll be able to show you how you can scale it down to fit different sizes, different people. But this is for an adult person. Now, these measurements are pre-made. They are standard measurements for this case, for you to be able to come out with this mask. Yes, but of course, this is a journey of discovery. You can always invent better ways of carving, better ways of drafting. Design is not really cramped. It's a journey of discovery, and you are always able to come up with better ways to build prototypes and later transition them into a working product. Yes, thank you.
I was wondering if a client gives you an order.
Yes.
Now, an order like this one that doesn't have specific measurements, you're not going to measure the nose and measure the ears, what? So how do you come up with these measurements for that client?
Yes. Now, masks don't really have specific measurements for you. There isn't a case in point where you're going to get a tape measure and run it around somebody's face. No, but however, you will be able to use what I call standard measurements. So we know that from what other people have already prototyped, or tried out making, they have discovered that these are the measurements that can lead you to making a standard mask for an adult. Then those measurements are what we adopt to become standard measurements to develop a similar prototype. However, there is something we call grading. We can grade this pattern so that we can reduce it to fit a smaller face, we can increase it to fit a bigger face, like that. But we always consider standard measurements. And somebody also was asking which side is on fold. This side here that I've written in red is the side which is on fold. This edge here. So if you transfer your pattern on the fabric, you should be able to cut. If you transfer your pattern on the fabric, you should make sure that this side of your fabric is folded. Any other question? Let me get like 3 questions and we conclude the lecture. It's meant to be a very short lecture. I see here in the chat someone is mentioning something. If I can try to pull it up. Someone is saying, oh yes, someone was trying to help a member. Which side is on fold? Yes, I've showed you which side is on fold. And yes, any other question? Can I take 2 more questions and we conclude the presentation? It was a very quick presentation. The video will be up on YouTube. Now, when you go to our YouTube channel, guys, make sure that you subscribe and you will be able to recap most of those previous videos. And also, Nina will be posting her recent video on product development and fashion. Now, I would like to take about 2 more questions and we conclude. If there is any point you would want me to extra pound and to give extra details, I'll be happy to. Can you please show the side of the nose where we should stitch? Great. So the side of the nose where you're meant to stitch, let me pull up this slide. This particular slide here. So after you've cut out your fabric, make sure that this edge which is on fold here is not cut. You will actually cut here, you will come and cut right here, you will cut there and cut here, but you shouldn't cut the fold line. Then you'll be able to get something that looks like this for both the lining and the outer fabric. Now this part here that forms a V is where you're supposed to close. It's where you're supposed to stitch, and that's the nose piece. As you can see here, it is the nose piece and it's the part that you're supposed to stitch and close up. I hope I've answered you.
Mr. Ntale, it's the part that was folded.
No, the part that we are stitching here, I know maybe the descriptions here are a bit confusing, I guess, but the part that we are meant to stitch is this part. This V part here is the part you're supposed to close out. Yes. I hope I've answered you.
I don't get it. I'm sorry.
So what I'm saying is, you see this V part is what you're supposed
Yes, I
to.
do.
You see, when you close like this, when you close when you close your mask so that it faces the wrong side, you're meant to stitch that part. You close it so that it's not open. You stitch it up, you stitch this part up and close it. Fold the mask, fold the fabric so that the right sides are facing each other, and then you close that part. You stitch it up like that.
Okay.
Any other person, please? Let me take 1 more question, then I close the class. 1 more question and I'll be able to close this class if you have any.
So I also wanted you to add more emphasis on how to put the fabric so that it's not on bikukuju. Like when you're stitching, how do you endeavor that you're not going to stitch and the side is on bikukuju, then the other side is inside?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. So what we are actually doing here is very simple. This is like the way you see these pieces here, the outer fabric and this lining fabric. The sides are actually seeing at the right sides. So if I'm to join them together, I have to cover them in a way that the right sides are facing each other. As you can see here, that this right side of the outer piece and the right side of the lining are actually facing each other, so that you are able to stitch around the perimeters like that. Yeah. So that is it, guys. If you have any questions, I'm seeing some people have bringing up some questions in the how do I turn the mask inside out after sewing all through? Great. After stitching at this point, after stitching the lengthwise sides, after stitching this side here and stitching this other side as well, then you will turn it inside out. You pull it through. You turn it. When you're stitching. When you're stitching them at this point, you don't stitch the sides. You don't stitch these ends, because these are the ends where you're going to be pulling the entire mask inside out. You're only stitching the lengthwise sides. You're stitching this curve here up to there, and you're also stitching this curve, but you don't stitch the sides. After that, you will be able to pull through, and then you top stitch, as you see. All right. I think I have exhausted quite a number of things today. But if you have any questions, you can still reach out on WhatsApp and ask as many questions as you can, so that we are able to achieve this together. Now, I understand most of you have sewing machines at home. I would love for you, after you've completed making your mask, you take pictures and share them. You give your submissions in the class, or you send them online, then I'll be able to check out what you have made. Now, whatever you've made, you can still wear it and take like a selfie. I'll still be able to see how your mask is fitting your face, and it will be amazing to see how this learning journey goes. We were supposed to access Motif for a more in-depth tutorial, but unfortunately, because of the movements, but I believe we have still been able to grasp the depth of it, and I'll be happy to see what you guys are able to achieve. Otherwise, allow me to be able to close this tutorial. And if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask them. Now, on Thursday, I'll still be able to communicate in the groups. We'll be meeting to recap on what you have done, and people will be able to share their views. And after that session, we will now do another session for another style of mask, which is the contoured mask. It's a little bit flatter mask, and it still comes down to the pattern making, and we will be able to share insights on how to achieve that. Otherwise, I would love to thank you all for participating this morning, for coming to the lecture, and see you. Thank you for coming.